Chapter 33, wherein Tu Shaoqing and his wife take a pleasure trip, and Qi Hingshan discusses ceremony with a friend. After Mr. Lau went home and Tu Shaoqing had no one left to reason with him, he spent money more and more recklessly. As soon as the first lot of silver was finished, he made Whiskers Wang sell another piece of land for over 2,000 taels, which he proceeded to squander. He also gave Pouting Hisi 100 taels to take home with him across the Yangtze. When Magistrate Wang's business was settled, he vacated his rooms and left. Then Tu spent another half year or so at home until his silver was nearly finished, and he decided to make over his house to the clan and move to Nanking. His wife, when consulted, agreed to this, and although others tried to dissuade him, he would not listen. After a busy half year, the house was finally made over, and by the time all the debts were settled and everything in pawn had been redeemed, he had over 1,000 taels left. "I'm going to pay a visit to my nephew Lu in Nanking," he told his wife. "When I've found a house, I'll come back for you." Thereupon, he packed his baggage to cross the Yangtze with Whiskers Wang and the servant boy Chia Chue. Whiskers Wang, who saw that matters were in a bad way, helped himself to 20 taels of silver during the journey and made off. Tu simply laughed, however, and went on alone with Chu Chue. When he reached the house of his mother's relatives, the Lu family, at Granary Lane, his nephew Lu Hue Shi invited him in, and they exchanged greetings in the hall. Tu then went upstairs to bow before the tablets of the grandfather and grandmother. After which he paid his respects to Hue Shi's mother, and ordered his boy to unpack the ham, tea, and other local produce he had brought for her. Lu Hue Shi took him into the library for a meal, inviting the tutor he had engaged this year to accompany them. When the tutor had greeted him, Tu urged him to take the seat of honor and asked his name. "I am Qi Hingshan. May I inquire your honorable name?" "My name is Uncle Tu from Tianchang," replied Hue Shi. "Is it Mr. Tu Shaoqing? You are known throughout the country, sir, for your noble deeds. I have heard your fame but never seen your face, and little thought to meet so distinguished a guest today." He stood up to bow once more. The tutor was thin, with eyebrows that nearly met in the middle, long fingers, and brilliant eyes. Realizing that he was no ordinary man, Tu treated him warmly from the start. When, after the meal, Tu mentioned that he wanted to find a house, Qi Hingshan was delighted. "Why don't you find yourself a riverside house, sir?" he suggested. "The very thing," replied Tu. "Suppose we search for a house now and look at the river Chin Hue at the same time." Bidding Hue Shi remain at home, Mr. Qi walked out with Shaoqing. At No. 1 Scholar Square, they saw someone with new book covers pasted on the bookshop. One of the titles read, "Commentaries on Examination Essays by Ma Chun Shang of Chu Chao and Chu Hisian Fu of Jie Sing." "This Chu Hisian Fu is the grandson of Prefect Chu of Nanjing," said Tu. "We are relatives. So since he is here, I had better call on him. He went in with Mr. Qi. Chu Hisian Fu came in to greet them, and they exchanged the usual compliments. Then Ma Chun Shang came in, bowed, and inquired their names. "This is Mr. Tu Shaoqing at the family of the No. 1 scholar in Tianchang," said Chu. "This is Mr. Qi Hingshan of Chuzheng. They are two of our leading scholars, and my one regret is that we did not meet earlier." "Shaoqing wants to look for rooms," said Mr. Qi when tea had been served. "We mustn't stay longer today." On the way out, they saw a man leaning over the counter reading a poem. "This is my work," he declared, pointing at the book. The four others walked up to him and saw that lying beside him was a white fan inscribed with poems. Chu Hisian Fu opened it and read, "Mr. Lan Chiang." "It's Qing Lan Chiang," he cried with a laugh. Qing Lan Chiang stood up. When he saw the two strangers, he bowed and inquired their names. "We had better go to look for poems," said Tu, taking Chi's arm. We can call on these gentlemen later." They walked past Yue Qing Bridge, and Qi Hingshan, who knew the way, found a house agent to show them several houses by the river. But not until they reached Eastwater Gate did they find anything satisfactory. Since this was the year for the county examinations, these rooms were exceedingly dear. The rent of this house was 8 taels a month. "Very well," said Tu. "We'll rent it first and see about buying it later." The custom in Nanking is to demand a deposit and the first month's rent in advance. The house agent and the landlord went straight to Lou's house at Granary Lane to draw up the contract, and Tu paid them 16 taels. Since his relatives prepared wine to entertain him and Mr. Chi, and they chatted until it was late, the two were spending the night there. They had barely washed their faces the next morning when someone called from outside the door. "Where is Mr. Tu Xiaoqing?" But before Tu could go to see who it was, a stranger had entered. "Don't tell me your names," he said. "Let me guess." After looking at them steadily, he stepped forward and laid one hand on Tu. "You are Tu Xiaoqing," he declared. "I am Tu Xiaoqing," agreed Tu with a smile. "This is Mr. Qi Hing Shang, and this is my nephew. What is your honorable name?" "You are a legendary figure, sir," said the visitor, "and your commanding presence, so unlike Mr. Chi's mature dignity, struck awe into my heart. That is how I knew it was you. I am Chi Wei He Xiao at your service." "Are you the Mr. Chi who judged the operatic contest?" asked Chi. "I have been looking forward to meeting you." Chi Wei He Xiao sat down. "Your good cousin has already left for the north," he told Tu. "When did he leave?" asked Tu in surprise. "Only 3 or 4 days ago. I saw him to Dragon River Station. He is a senior licentiate now, and has gone to the capital to take the examination. I understand you scatter gold like dirt, sir. In that case, why have you been hiding at home for so long instead of bringing your money here to give us all a good time?" "I'm here now," replied Tu. "I have taken a riverside house and mean to send for my family." "Wonderful," Chi Wei He Xiao clapped his hands. "I must find myself a couple of rooms next to yours, and bring my wife here to keep Mrs. Tu company. Will you pay for our house too?" "Certainly," replied Tu. Presently a meal was served, and they prevailed on Chi Wei He Xiao to stay. While at table, his description of how he had tricked Tu Xin-ching into calling on the Taoist priest made them laugh so violently that they nearly choked. The moment the meal was over, Ma Chun-shang, Chu Hixian-fu, and Qing Lan-chiang called. After chatting for a time, they saw these guests out. But no sooner had they come back than Hisao Chin-sun, Chu Ko, Tian Shin, and Chi Tian-yi called. Chi Wei He Xiao joined them, and after a little conversation, left the 3 other guests. Then Tu Xiaoqing wrote a letter home and sent a man to Tian Chang to find his household. Early the next morning, when he was about to return the calls of Chi Wei He Xiao and others, Qiao Tei and Lai the Taoist priest arrived. Tu ushered them in, and at the sight of the priest and the memory of the previous day's conversation, he could not suppress a smile. After a little polite conversation, the priest produced a book of poems, and Qiao Tei and Pi presented Tu with 2 seals. He accepted their gifts, and having drunk tea, they left. Tu then went out to call on the others. He spent 7 or 8 days with the Lus, and in the course of discussing ceremony and music with Qi Hing Shang, they became very friendly with the tutor. When at last his household arrived in 4 boats, which moored by the riverside house, Tu took leave of the Lu family and moved to his new quarters. The next day, everyone came to offer congratulations. This was early in the 3rd month, when the houses by the river were beginning to be filled, and music could often be heard. Tu Xiaoqing prepared a feast and invited 4 tables of guests, including Chi Wei He Xiao, Ma Chun-shang, Chu Hixian-fu, Chi Tian-yi, Chi Hing Shang, Lu Huishi, Qing Lan-chiang, Chu Ko Tian-shing, Hisao Qin Hisun, Qiao Tei-pi, and Lai Hsieh-shi. Qin Teng-ya, who lived in a neighboring riverside house and had called, was invited too. The tea attendants and cooks were the first to arrive. Then Pao Ting Hisi brought the boys he was training for his 3 founts company to kowtow to Mr. and Mrs. Tu, who regaled them with fruit. Next, the landlord of the house introduced a flower seller named Yao, and Mrs. Tu asked her to stay. By midday, all the guests had arrived, and every window was opened. The visitors sat where they pleased or leaned over the balcony to watch the river, sipping tea as they chatted, leafing through books on the table, or sitting at ease enjoying themselves. Each did exactly as he liked. Then a seat and chair arrived, accompanied by Pao Ting Hisi, who had brought his wife to pay her respects to the young mistress. When she alighted and entered the house, Mrs. Yao burst out laughing. "Everyone in Nanking knows this woman," she told Mrs. Tu. "What made her take it into her head to call?" In Mrs. Tu's presence, however, Mrs. Pow was on her best behavior, and Mrs. Tu invited her to stay too. When Tu went to his wife's room, Mrs. Yao and Mrs. Pow paid him their respects. The presence of so many guests inspired Pao Ting Hisi to make all manner of quips and jokes, and the time passed merrily till the feast was ready. Then Tu invited his guests to take their seats, and not till late that night did the party break up. Ting Hisi, carrying a lantern to escort his wife's chair, left as well. A few days later, because it was Mrs. Tu's first night to Nanking, she expressed a wish to see some of the sights. "That can be easily arranged," said her husband. They ordered several seats and chairs and invited Mrs. Yao to join the party. 2 or 3 maids accompanied them by chair, and the cook carried food and wine for them to Yao Garden on Mount Chiangling, which they had hired for the occasion. Yao Garden was a large park which you could enter by a wicker gate. The path inside the gate was paved with white pebbles and bordered by scarlet balustrades, shown off to advantage by green willows on either side. Passing a 3-roomed building, they came to a place where wine was usually sold, but today all the tables had been removed. Beyond this was a path up the mountain. At the summit was an octagonal pavilion, and here the meal was spread while Mrs. Tu, Mrs. Yao, and the others looked at the scenery from the pavilion. On one side was Mount Qingliang, with bamboo groves dotted up and down its slopes. On the other, a charming view of Ling Yin Temple, its red walls embedded in greenery. They had not been sitting there long when Tu Shaoqing arrived by chair with his golden goblet, which he placed on the table and filled with wine. Then, reveling in the spring warmth and balmy breeze, he carried the goblet to the balustrade and started to do some heavy drinking. Very drunk, at last, he took his wife's hand and walked out of the garden, holding the golden goblet and roaring with laughter. So they strolled several hundred yards down the hillside, while the other women followed them, laughing merrily. All who saw were shocked and amazed. When Tu and his wife had mounted their chairs and left, Mrs. Yao and the maids plucked branches of peach blossoms and loaded their chairs with these, then were carried home. It was late by the time Tu reached the riverside house, but he found Lu Huishi waiting there. "Uncle Chuang from North Gate Bridge has heard of your arrival, Uncle," said Lu, "and wants very much to see you. He hopes you will wait in tomorrow, so that he can pay his respects." "I have always treated Mr. Chuang as my teacher," replied Tu. "I didn't invite him the other day because he cannot bear to mix with those poets. But I was about to call on him. How can I trouble him to come here? Please go back as fast as you can, nephew, and send a messenger to convey my regards, and say I shall call on him tomorrow." Huishi assented and left. Tu Shaoqing had barely closed the gate after seeing him off, when knocking was heard. The servant boy opened the gate and let someone in. "Master Lau is here, sir," he announced. Tu Shaoqing saw that it was Mr. Lau's grandson, dressed in mourning, who prostrated himself weeping. "My grandfather has died," he announced. "I came specially to tell you, sir." "When did he pass away?" "On the 26th of last month." Tu Shaoqing wept and prepared sacrificial offerings that same night. Early the next morning he mounted a seat and chair and set out for Tao Huang. Chi Wei Hsiao came over early, having heard of the outing to Yao's garden, but learning that Tu had gone to Tao Huang, he had to leave regretfully. Upon reaching Tao Huang, Tu Shaoqing wept bitterly several times before Mr. Lau's coffin, then hired Buddhist monks to perform several days' masses for the dead man's spirit. Many of the Lau family relatives were invited. Tu stayed there for 4 or 5 days, weeping again and again, until all the people of Tao Hung marveled. "How good the Tian Chang Tu family really is," said someone. "The old man must have been a fine character, or Mr. Tu would not be showing so much respect," said others. "We should acquit ourselves like this old man." When Tu Shaoqing gave an additional several hundred taels of silver to Mr. Lau's family to buy a burial ground, the whole Lau clan, men and women, came to thank him. Then after crying bitterly once more before the coffin, he left. When he reached home, his wife told him, "The day after you left, a courier from the provincial government and a messenger from Tianchang County Yamen arrived with a dispatch for you. I told them that you were away, and they put me up in an inn, but they've been back every day since. I don't know what their business is. Strange, said Tu. While he was wondering what this might mean, the servant boy announced, "The courier and messenger to see you, sir." Tu Shaoqing went out, greeted the courier, and sat down. The courier congratulated him, and the messenger presented a dispatch, which had already been opened. Tu read, "A dispatch from Governor Li regarding the recommendation of men of talent. By order of the emperor, an investigation is being made of scholars from all part of the country. Our office has ascertained that Tu Shaoqing, the scholar of Tiancheng, is a man of fine character and outstanding literary attainments. We therefore request the college instructors of his district to invite him to proceed forthwith to the provincial capital for a test, in order that he may report to the government and that he may be summoned for an audience with the emperor and be given an appointment. The matter is urgent." "Governor Li was my grandfather's student," reflected Tu after reading this. "He counts as my uncle, which must be why he has recommended me. I can't possibly accept. But since he has been so good, I must prepare to leave at once and go to the Yamen to thank him." He left the courier to a meal, presented him with several taels for the road, and the messenger with another 2 taels, then dismissed them. Having no money for the journey, he pawned his gold goblet for 30 taels, then set sail with a servant boy for Anqing. Upon his arrival, he found that Governor Li had left on public business. When he came back several days later, Tu Shaoqing presented his card, and the attendant opened the gate and invited him into the library. The governor came in, and Tu bowed to him and inquired after his health. Governor Li offered him a seat. "After my patron died, I often wondered what had become of you and your cousins," said the governor. "I had long heard of your outstanding talents and virtue, and so the government adopted the ancient practice of offering posts to scholars living in retirement. I made so bold as to name you. You must not think of declining." "My talents and learning are of the poorest," replied Tu. "You overrate me, sir, and I am afraid I should let you down. Don't be unduly modest. Let me arrange it for your county government. I am extremely grateful for this undeserved honor, but mine is a rustic nature, and I have grown accustomed to country ways. My health has also been poor recently. I must beg your excellency to find someone else." "How can sons of official families refuse to take up office? My information was not at fault, and I insist on recommending you." Tu Shaoqing dared say no more. Governor Li kept him there that night, and asked his opinion of a number of poems and essays which he had written. The following morning, Tu took his leave. He had not brought much money with him, and as a result of staying a few days extra and having to tip the attendants at the provincial government. By the time he hired a boat for Nanking, he had not 3 taels left for the fare. The wind was also against them, so it took 4 or 5 days to reach Wuhu. There the boat was unable to make headway, and the boatman asked for money to buy rice. But when Tu bade his boy make a search, it appeared that they had only 5 coppers left. He decided he'd have to pawn some clothes and walked gloomily ashore to the Temple of Good Luck, where he sat down at a table, drank some tea, and ate 3 cakes because he was hungry. The bill came to 6 coppers, which meant he could not leave the tea house. He noticed a Taoist priest passing, but did not take a good look at him. The Taoist, however, turned back to stare at Tu, then hurried over. "What brings you here, sir?" he asked. "So it is Lai he say she. Sit down and have some tea," laughed Tu. "Why are you alone here?" inquired Lai. "When did you come?" asked Tu. "After trespassing on your hospitality that day, I received a letter from Magistrate Chang of Wuhu County, inviting me here to write poems. That's why I came. I am living at Boatwatcher's Pavilion, where I have a wonderful view across the river. Won't you come to my lodgings? I went to Anqing to see a friend, and on my way back the wind held us up here. I should like to accompany you to your quarters." Lai he say she paid for the tea, and they walked together to Boatwatcher's Pavilion. The Taoist in the temple came out to ask who this honorable guest was. "It's Mr. Tu of the family of the number 1 scholar in Tianshang," Lai told him. The Taoist evinced great respect and begged Mr. Tu to be seated while he made tea. Presently he noticed, pasted on the wall, a poem about Boatwatcher's Pavilion, dedicated to Lai he say she and signed by Wei Su Hison. "This poem is by the 4th Mr. Wei of Wu Yi," said Tu. "When was he here?" "Mr. Wei is upstairs now," replied the Taoist. "Why, then, let us go up and see him." They went upstairs together. "Mr. Wei," called the Taoist, "Mr. Tu of Tianshang is here." "What's here?" asked Mr. Wei, walking out. Mr. Wei smoothed his beard with both hands. I was wondering who it could be," he said, chuckling. "So it's you, Shaoqing. What brings you to these wild parts? Sit down while I brew some tea for you, and tell me all you've been doing. Where have you come from?" Tu told him briefly about Governor Li's offer. I didn't bring enough money with me, he concluded, and I've only 5 coppers left. It was Mr. Li who paid for my tea just now. I've no money to pay the boatman or buy food. Capital, Mr. Wei laughed heartily. So this is the end of the great patron. But a fine fellow like you needn't worry about such trifles. Stay and have a meal with me. A former student of mine who lives in Wuhu passed the examination the other day, and when I went to congratulate him, he gave me 24 taels of silver. When we finished our meal and the wind has shifted, I'll give you 10 taels. Tu sat down to drink with Mr. Wei, and Lai he says she. They remained at table till the afternoon, watching the boats on the river from the pavilion window, and gradually the little banners on the junk which showed the direction of the wind veered. Good, cried Mr. Wei. The wind has changed. They leaned over the window sill to gaze at the river, as the setting sun bathed the upper half of thousands of masts in a rosy light. The weather has cleared and the northeast wind has dropped, said Tu. I'll say goodbye to you, uncle, and go back to my boat. After giving Tu 10 taels of silver, Mr. Wei and Lai saw him to his junk. The Taoist asked to be remembered to all his friends in Nanking, and they bade their farewells, and Lai and Mr. Wei turned back. Tu Xiaoqing spent that night on the boat. At the 5th watch, a gentle south wind sprang up, and the boatman hoisted sail. With a following wind, it took only half a day to reach White River Arbor, where Tu paid for his passage, had his baggage carried ashore, and took a sedan chair home. His wife, who was waiting for him, laughed merrily when he told her how he had run out of money on the trip. The next day, he went to Northgate Bridge to call on Mr. Chuang Xiaoqiang. Governor Hisu of Cheking Province invited our master to visit the West Lake with him, he was told. He won't be back for several days. Tu then went to the Lu house at Granary Lane to see Chi Hing Shan. The Lus kept him to a meal, and he and Mr. Chi started chatting. The scholars nowadays think only of the examinations, complained Mr. Chi. To write a couple lines of poetry is considered the height of accomplishment, while the sciences of ceremony, music, military affairs, and agriculture are completely ignored. When the first emperor of our dynasty pacified the country, his achievements were comparable to those of Tang and Wu, but he set up no system of ceremony or music. Now that you have been recommended, Xiaoqing, you must do some good work for the government to justify this generation of scholars. I have already declined to accept any appointment, replied Tu. I am afraid I could achieve nothing, and would only make discriminating people laugh at me. Hence, I think it is better not to take office. Chi Hing Shang fetched a roll of paper from his room. I want your advice on something, he said. What is it? The worthiest man Nanking has produced, past or present, is Tai Po, who founded the kingdom of Wu. Yet there is not a single temple dedicated to him, though you find temples to the god of literature and the god of war everywhere. I want to persuade some friends to contribute enough to build a temple to Tai Po. Then in mid-spring and mid-autumn, we can sacrifice with the ancient ceremonies and music. In this way, people will practice ceremony and music, and that should be able to produce more genuine scholars who will be able to serve the government well. But it'll cost several hundred taels. I've prepared a scroll here, and anyone who would like to contribute can sign it. How much will you give, Xiaoqing? This is an admirable scheme, cried Tu, delighted. He took the scroll and unrolled it. Tu Xiaoqing of Tianqing donates 300 taels, he wrote. That's a handsome donation, said she. I'm going to give the 200 taels I've saved from my tutorial fees during the last 2 years. He wrote this down. Hue Shi, would you be able to give 50 taels too, he urged. This was also written on the scroll. Then Chi Hing Shang rolled it up again and they went on talking. Presently one of Tu's servants arrived. A messenger from Tiancheng County Yamen wants to see you, sir, he announced. Will you please come home? Tu left Chi Hing Shan and went back to his house. But to know what followed, you must read the next chapter.